everyone. Okay, so for me personally, one of the interesting things about this chapter is how All Might and Izuku's stories are not all that dissimilar from each other. Like, don't get me wrong, each era has its own woes and strifes, and although it is clear the era All Might grew up in was much more hostile and volatile than when Izuku started out, I think it is an interesting concept in itself, in how each era of heroes, there's one that rises above the fray and rises and above all the others. In All Might's era at the time, he rose up to be the hero of his era. He rose up to be the one who would become that symbol of peace that he said. And Izuku rose up to the challenge in order to become the hero of his era, of his generation. Although, the interesting thing about the current era and about Izuku's era of things, and just looking back upon how the series started and where it is now, when you look at the series, we definitely see that Izuku wasn't the only hero who rose up to that challenge. The current era has bred a whole new crop of heroes, from Bakugo to Todoroki to Ida to Kirishima, and yes, even Ochiko. And although this era did definitely put the idea of heroism to the test in regards to who was a true hero, who were the pretenders, ultimately this era did see a true rebirth of heroism. And when compared to the hellish landscape All Might had to see every day when he was young, Izuku's era birthed a whole new crop of young heroes who have given even someone like All Might, who's long been touted as the pinnacle of heroism, the strength of will to be here in this fight and continue moving forward despite having no powers, and as shown by the fact that he actually named a lot of his techniques after his students' heroes' names and techniques. Like, it's even though it's that thing where it shows that even though All Might was an inspiration to so many in his era, there are so many who've actually inspired him and kept him and made him even look at the world a little bit differently, and how his pretty much ideals aren't wrong. His ideals are the purest form of heroism there are, but it's because of these kids that it also made him look at the world a little differently, and how he affected on it, how his intentions of being the symbol of peace at the time, while good intentioned, it didn't come without consequence, and this is him looking at his role, like, while it is him trying to give reason. Now this is him giving much more reason to that role he played, I guess you could say. Now, obviously, talking about the fight itself, I am getting more and more the vibe that All Might is gonna die the longer this fight drags on, but at this point, I don't think he's gonna die in vain either, because based off All Might's inner monologue and the whole thing about the whole thing with the pinky acid shot he gave All For One, I think I got Horikoshi's game now, at least in regards to how he's gonna end this with All For One, which is to say, it's all a matter of running down the clock. The longer this battle goes on, the more strain it puts on All For One's body, which I will say, if this is what ultimately does All For One in, even if he's not defeated in this battle, then I'm not gonna lie, while it might be a little anticlimactic, I think in some ways it is still a fitting end for the character, because his entire life, the only things that have ever driven All For One are his vanity, his hubris, that lust for power and control. And now, in an ironic twist, now that he has gained all his full power and youth back, now that he's gained everything that he once had, he's also losing it because of the strain it's putting on his body, and because of the strain all these battles are putting on his body. Pacing wise, it does feel like it's being rushed a little bit due to the circumstances of Horikoshi's health, obviously. But I do like the idea itself, the fact that All For One is basically kind of going to be responsible for his own downfall. The only question is whether it'll happen in this fight, or if it's a thing where All Might's going to die in the fight, and then there will be a delayed reaction where All For One's body implodes on itself, meaning he's going to continue on fighting for a little longer. And honestly, with the parallel Horikoshi drew at the end of the chapter between All For One and versus All Might and Izuku versus Shigaraki, I'm inclined to believe the former because I'm not gonna lie, having All For One live much longer after this fight feels like it'll drag things out a little bit longer than necessary, especially since we still do have Izuku versus Shigaraki. And honestly, either way, I think it's definitely going to be poetic if All Might and All For One do kind of end up taking each other out in some way. Like, they've been rivals and enemies for so long that it only figured that they would destroy each other, I guess. And again, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of an interesting parallel as well how much Nana meeting a young Toshinori paralleled Izuku meeting All Might, as both All Might and Nana both had the same All Might and Nana had both the same dismissive attitude towards their charges, yet it was that one declaration of intent that switched them around to the idea of both reflecting the era. And yeah, not to play favorites, but All Might's declaration of intent feels like it came straight from a Superman quote. Like, the idea of just wanting to be a hero for the sake of saving people, giving them a reassurance that they can live their lives in peace. It's all nothing but pure good intention and a noble sentiment. But I guess, in retrospect of how events played out after All Might lost his powers, it shows that even those best intentions, even those purest of notions, were marred by consequence. The consequences we now face in the present, but for the era, it was the hopeful message the world needed, and now we are in that situation where that hopeful spirit is needed again. But it's one not marred by pure idealism, but also the strength needed to carry it. Like, you could say this current era not only helped redefine heroism, but also redefined All Might's ideals as well, and how he looked at himself, I think, in a lot of ways. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Analyst, Crunchyroll, push the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight signing off. Later, everyone.